very spare but intimate interaction with you. So just let's open it up and share your first impressions before. What did it mean? What did you take away from this? How does it resonate?
Was any of this based on Ellis Cosis's work about the Truth and Reconciliation?
Well, this is all based on Pumla Gobodo-Madikizela's book that she wrote over a 5-year, 40 hours of interviews. So it's Nicholas Wright's adaptation of Pumla's book.
Okay.
And all of it is a true memoir. Other people, what are you sitting with? Questions or impressions that you're sitting with? Yes?
I thought the acting was excellent and the accents, everything was very moving. And I don't know, it makes me reflect on the present. And, I kind of grew up just being really focused on the slave experience of Black people, blah, blah. And this makes the past the present. I mean, this is just yesterday to me, and it's just.
Farida, I want to ask you.
It's interesting how far we haven't come. And it just makes you think a lot.
Farida Mohammed is with Mosaic Theater. You've seen this play more than a few times, maybe four times now?
Not really.
3?
No.
Yeah.
That was Blood Knot. I just saw the reading of
Oh,
this
that's
when
right.
I first started.
Oh, this is your
That
first
was
time
Blood-
seeing it full out.
Yeah, since the
Fabulous.
first reading.
So I wanted to ask you, Farida, what you make of Pumla's, in a sense, journey or her motivation for wanting to sit with this man.
Well, ultimately, I think we're all trying to be human and kind of figure out what that is. And that's kind of, that's what I came away with. We're still trying to figure out how to be human and humane. And, I don't know.
Thank you. Kimon Freeman, let me introduce you to Erica Shavley, Chris Genebach, Jason McIntyre. So, Kimon, you've written about South Africa yourself. You've been there. You're a writer, a poet.
I've written about Kenya.
I thought you wrote about South Africa.
No, I wrote about Kenya. I want to.
You got to play in you about South Africa.
But
what's sitting on your mind from the impressions you got from this play, and what kind of questions would you ask?
it's a couple things. The first thing, sitting here, I realized that theater is kind of like radio, and film is more like TV. You're in theater, you're listening intently. You're in movies you're going by what you're seeing more so, but in theater you really listen. And because you listen more intently, it may spark another thought during the course of a production. And what resonated with me in the performance of the piece I saw was when he said that he kept scrubbing himself too. Mm-hmm. And I unfortunately have known people who have killed people. I've known women who have been violated, and they both said the coping mechanism when they go home. Can you imagine, like the killer goes home, the rape victim goes home, they scrub themselves, and I got it like it was a cleansing of the soul attempt, and I think that from her character was trying to get a window into that other person, because I always wondered, like when we're dealing with white supremacy, the dominant doctrine on the planet for the past 500 years, I'm like, what do we have to do to you? You know what I'm saying? Like I always wanted to know that, and I don't know if that's the motivation her character has, but I've always been intrigued to what is beyond the obvious. I hate you. Okay, but why?
Why? Right.
Why? I got some good reasons, but why you? So I've always struggled with that, and that's what I was getting through here. I felt a tug of war about the why, And again, it was an incredible performance. I caught some of the rehearsal today, and I was just engrossed in the mastery of the material and how they seemingly flowed through some very tough dialogue. So I was impressed with that. And the last thing I want to say is that for those who are not that familiar with today's South Africa, there has been, probably more so now, this was when Mandela was still alive, so it's probably heightened, but there was kind of like a real mute criticism of Mandela. You know, there was like a lot of people, they wouldn't say it out loud, but like quiet tones that they felt that he sold them out a little bit because, you know, there was no retribution, there was no redistribution of wealth, there was no nationalization of resources, there was no equitable economic development because of the past rounds to be right, and there was none of that. And so we still have the same economic structure that existed on apartheid that still exists there today. Great disparities of wealth. So it was kind of like criticizing Obama, you know, like black folks, you know. So I felt that this was hitting on that, you know, because like she was saying, it's so, well, did we win? You know, I don't know. I think it's kind of like Malcolm X said, they just pulled a knife out. You know, okay, thank you for pulling the knife out. I'm still bleeding.
Right.
You know, and my back hurt. So that all of that, so like a
great
hurricane of emotions.
Well, I want to encourage Erica and Jason. I want to also enlist you to sort of give some responses. You haven't, you've watched the show every night. You're in the show. You have a unique perspective on it. So I don't know who wants to start first, but I'm really interested.
I fought from the very beginning.
Yes,
like,
please.
Many of you may not know, I'm in the show, but I don't speak. I'm the guard that brings Chris in and out. And I'm also I'm the assistant stage manager for the show. So I came into the process when it was pretty well developed. Mm-hmm. And the thing that struck me was, why are they even having this conversation? Mm-hmm. I understand it. I understand that people want to reestablish this man's humanity, but yeah, I was struck by the fact that, like, I have no sympathy for him. I don't think he should have ever got out of prison. He gets out of prison, by the way. I don't think he should have ever got out of prison. I don't think that his character, this man, well, he's not a character, he's a real man. I think that one of the hardest things that her character did was just to sit across the table from him and accept his words. I would have thrown him in a hole and never looked back. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that struck me, just how much compassion and humanity that her character has, and the fact that she actually says, I don't think anybody should be hanged. I don't think anybody should die in the prison system. And she stands by what she says. And I don't know, me as Jason, I don't know if I could be that big of a person.
Would Erica, was Pumla motivated by her professional training, by her desire to write a book, by her responsibilities as a TRC commissioner?
I think that she's trying to prevent it from ever happening again. And I think that her way of contributing to that goal is to try and understand why it happened to begin with. And I think that she feels that she has to delve into his humanity from a child all the way to the man that's sitting across from her, so that she can understand how a human being could do this to another human being, so that she can, because this is, in South Africa, there are prime evils walking around, like she says at the end, with their furniture shops and their taxi firms, and she has to buy a sofa from one of them. And I guess, so to me, that's what it is, that she's actually trying to bravely figure it out. Like, why did he do this? Like you said, why? You know, and she is brave, and she is scared, and she does sit across from a person who scares her sometimes, who probably, she goes, the first time she leaves, she's crying in her car. Like, she's not just this sterile doctor person. It affects her. It affects her life. But, and I also find it interesting that she doesn't just, her book or her paper was not just about primeval, it was also about Black South Africans who were torturing other Black South Africans with, she mentions it briefly, this thing called necklacing, which was also a form of torture and, dehumanizing to other people in her community. So I think she's trying to understand not just the racial aspect of it, but just why humans do this to other humans. And, it could be in the same race. You brought up women who have been abused, through, I'm getting a little, that topic is hard for me too, but, between genders. So between the sexes, it's not just about race, I think, for Pumla. It's like, she's, it's humanity. Why do we do this to each other? Whether it's Black or white, man or woman.
Can you tell? I'm sorry, because I just want to be clear on necklacing.
Yeah.
Necklacing is where you would tie up somebody's hands so that they couldn't move or they couldn't, and they would put a tire around the person's neck that was laced with gasoline and lighted on fire. So it was just, I'm sorry to say it.
They would do this to collaborators?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Or someone who they thought was a collaborator. I mean, obviously, there wasn't like there was a trial with a judge and we figured, this was, I decide you're a collaborator, and so that's horrific. And that was happening in the township. So she tells the story of the old lady who felt that guilt, and that's why she was very interested, and that's why she kind of expounds on that old lady who felt the guilt even though she hadn't actually done the act. She's really trying to get at the root cause of evil towards each other. It could be Black, white, man, woman. Those are just specifics to her. It's the bottom line of why we do this. I think she thinks she can stop it if she really understands it.
I saw an interview on public television about how necklacing started. Bullets are expensive. It was the way the man said it. It was just so matter of fact. Bullets are expensive. That's how it started.
It's also a tribal policing. So if you've committed a crime within your own community beyond being a collaborator, if you're a child molester, necklacing is used as punishment, unfortunately. And I guess because bullets are expensive.
Yes, sir.
So, first of all, my compliments to the actors. It was layered. I want to see it again now. So, but I wanted to go back to something you said. I felt it was a little scary to me because it sounded like a current day conversation. Talking to some friends of mine over the weekend who don't have my experience, and they were gloating about the fact that the United States dropped 59 bombs in Syria and mother of all bombs, and I didn't say it quite as eloquently. I said, but you have to understand, people just died. Do you really get that? It's real people having real deaths, and we just did. You can't. Then there's the McDonald, the guy gets killed in the parking lot, and one of the relatives says, "I wish he died in a hail of bullets." The other person said, "I forgive him." We're having this conversation now, but it scares me because I don't think we've got a better grip on it now than we did during apartheid. We're still having that conversation.
And he's got a great line, like, why?
If you don't see it, it's invisible.
Yes. But so I was thinking about that and thinking about this conversation that we're having nationally, and whether it's, you know, Black Lives Matter is personal to me because I get it, but my friend who's a Republican opinion writer, he doesn't get it. He doesn't live there. He doesn't get it. And I can't, we're over here sitting on the other side of that table. And I'm about to get angry. I had the same answer. He said, how do you feel? I said, I feel angry. He's like, he's stunned. You know, it's a policy discussion. No, it's not a policy discussion. So that was my reaction. It feels very current.
Which one of you said that you have anger in your heart? You said
Yes.
Anger and hope. Yeah, anger and hope. 2 questions on this side, please. What?
I have a question. Did your, or do you think, I guess it's Pumla's? Did her, I feel like she came very sincere from the beginning, or from my beginning, to the end of the play, but did your perception change about people? Because I want to say that it did because of you revealing like your personal struggle, but.
Could you talk about how you did that?
Yeah, I'm asking because I feel like you like it was really, I'm sorry, I'm just coming out of the dark, but like it was pretty clear like where you stood about your feelings and why you were interviewing, and then you also revealed the part about, not necessarily saying that it was your sister, but about how you felt about how AIDS is impacting like people, but did you change? Like was there, I feel like there was, but I don't really know it, like, and do you feel like the character changed or the person?
I think she went into this thinking that she could remain professional and detached and get the answers that she was looking for so that she could move on with her work. And I think the way that she changed, and one of what ended up being one of her main arguments later on, is that when it comes to traumatic events, that detachment is not useful, and that you have to be a human. You have to treat the person as a human being, and you have to allow yourself to not be this, you know, I keep using the word sterile, it's interesting, doctor behind a table, that you have to let your guard down a little bit and let the subject or the person that you're talking to know that you're a human. And once that happens, then more of a sharing can happen so that you guys can actually get somewhere real. And in this case, it happened by happenstance. She touches him, then she kind of freaks, then he says something about her touching him and she takes that the wrong way, and then in that argument, there's this mutual decision that's made that, like, okay, we're gonna drop this artifice and really, you know, feel the evil, really connect as humans as opposed to like patient and doctor. And so yes, that was a long way to say yes. I think that she did change. I think she truly believes that, like, I think that if she could talk to groups of psychologists, that would be like one of her first things that she would say is like, you got to drop that, remove it's not going to help you get there.
First, you had something in the middle, and then you.
First of all, I thought the performance was excellent, so thank you. I was really hit with just this sense of how both what you were saying about how we're, as the U.S., we're doing things, and it's not very human, and you're sort of, this is what we need to be human. I was with Sonia Kennebuck, who did this documentary on called National Bird, that's about the U.S. drone war, and the theme of that really is these whistleblowers who talk about it being human and the connection that they had when they realized what they were really doing. So it's a interesting connection on the two, and so I thought it was great.
Was the way you was it scripted the way you introduced it, or was that your own thing? Because that's very clever.
The last sentence of my introducing the author, Pumla, and faking you out is an invention of the director, Logan Vaughn. And almost every night people are fooled for this.
Even my mom. It's true.
That was very, very clever.
I love that he that explains a lot to me on how he was, because it seemed like he had a lot of respect, if I could use that word, for her. You know, I think there was remorse in there as well, but it kind of also reminded me of a film I saw. I wish we could show it to everybody. American History X, where you saw
Edward Norton. He changes.
Yeah, you see how a killer or a racist was created and then deprogrammed. How there was program and deprogram.
I never drew that comparative. That's totally.
Yeah, and I felt that it was.
With the white nationalists too.
Yep.
Like,
Yeah, you know, he kind of explained himself a little bit on how he, you know, like they drove you into this the propaganda. They showed us this and so us that, and then when I killed this guy, I saw he had the same Bible I was reading. I'm like, oh, yeah. I mean, I see the unraveling of the onion layers there. I think she was pulling it back, and I think someone said this to me one time. There's two kinds of killers. It's the ones who enjoy it, and the ones who will never do it again. You know, and you really think about that. Like, you know, like the guy that ran over somebody. You know, he killed somebody. Then he might have panicked and he fled the scene, and now he's, but does he deserve the same fate as the guy that enjoys it? You know. There's two times. I don't think this guy deserves to be in there. I don't know how we're going to figure out who that is. Like you said, that the Nicholson was on judge and jury, but how do we find out what makes that person tick? And I've always been told that there's a little string deep in our soul that we are holding all this together. So a little string, and that string can snap in all of us. This string that we're holding together, and I think his string had snapped at some point. And she was helping him tie it together. That's just my.
That's a nice
the question. I didn't get you.
Jason.
You said you didn't think, or maybe someone else said, the implication was Mandela. There's some resentment because with all the forgiveness, there's no progress. And you said I would not have forgiven him. So I guess my question is, we've got two examples: forgive, and here's where you are, no progress. Don't forgive.
I'll put it this way.
No progress.
Forgive, sure. Let him out? Nope.
Okay, but
Those are two different things. To me, those are two different things.
which answer in the play? I couldn't figure out what I'm going to mispronounce that name. I couldn't figure out what her decision was. Is forgiving better or not forgiving? Where's the progress? Which one of those pathways takes you forward?
Go ahead.
No, I didn't get it. I couldn't, and I don't have an answer for myself. I was like, do you forgive in your Mandela? Because I think they got away, what I think of South Africa is too many people got away killing thousands and thousands of people and basically walked away.
Well, I think Mandela had to be pragmatic because he didn't want a civil war. He wanted it to stop. So he had to make some really hard choices about things that, thank God I'll never have to make decisions about. But
so I guess I'm asking, with that said, there's no progress.
Well, here's the thing. There's one word that we haven't used, but that's really the first word of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. And that's really what Pumla's here to do. She's not there to forgive or anybody. That's not her. She's there to hold somebody accountable and force them to reckon and see and fully admit, fully confess.
And may I add to that just one thing, is that Eugene's point, regardless of what you think about him, whether you're Mrs. Falco or Mrs. Mobutu, which they both forgave him, which is what intrigued Pumla in the first place, because he was showing genuine remorse, is that Eugene was saying, I'm fine with taking the blame, but let's blame all the people that deserve it.
And another thing too is that one of the first things I found out about Pumla through research is that forgiveness is not just this Judeo-Christian idea of like, I just forgive and I'm a good person and I'm just gonna. Remorse from the other side is very important in her calculus of that. Like the person saying that they're sorry, like that is a huge part of it. And so I think that that is missing with a lot of Eugene's contemporaries. All they kind of did was say what they did, but a lot of them did not express remorse for it. Eugene actually did directly to the widows and others express remorse. He took them to mass graves. He explained his guilt in many different crimes, and so for her, that's a huge part of the calculation, which is not something that I think Mandela, like you said, in a practical way, he couldn't go to every single person and be like, okay, well, if you're not, you know what I mean? Like, he was trying to avoid civil war and his entire country falling apart. But as far as forgiveness, a huge part of the equation for Pumla, at least through her research, is remorse.
Chris, I know you have something to say, but can you just add a little bit more to what Jason shared with us about the real Eugene being released? When did that happen?
It happened about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. He was paroled. He's gone through a couple of incidents where he ended up going back to jail, and they wouldn't release him again because they wanted to put him in the witness protection program, because there are so many South Africans that abhor the man.
On both sides.
Yeah. A story that I actually just read that happened in 2016 was he went to sort of like the South African version of Vail for a book release of a guy that had written a biography about him. And he showed up on invited by the author, and it was this pretty high profile sort of to do, and everyone, at least 99% of the people there were just in shock and disgusted, and the person that was hosting the party ended up going up to him and asking him to leave and saying, could you please, you're distressing everyone here, could you please leave? And the quote that the woman who asked him to leave is attributing to him is, thank you for telling me I'm sorry, and he left. Now I don't know, I can't speak to what that man is like in reality. There's just no way I could ever. But I can speak from having read Pumla's book and seen her in interviews on YouTube, and that he has expressed genuine remorse because he was a tool of apartheid. That if he'd had the chance to grow up in an environment, I mean, everyone talks about it being a nice excuse, being a product of your environment, but in some cases, the nurture comes a long way. Yeah, nature has an effect, and he says it, maybe there's some part of my character, but I think ultimately from the evidence that I've seen or read and gleaned, I don't discredit anybody that was in South Africa and knows very closely firsthand how awful this man was, because you can't wipe away the sins. But he certainly seems remorseful for the sins that he did commit. Where he's at now, I don't know.
And just to add to that, in the case of the Charleston shooting, a lot of the family members forgave Dylan Roof, but he did not apologize or express any remorse. It was, and I'm saying Judeo-Christian because that's just the context I have in my mind, like this is what I'm to do as a good person, is to forgive you, but that's not exactly what we're talking about in this situation. Just Dylan just sitting there with no remorse, no words for anybody or anything. It's very different with Eugene, who, like he said, hit me if you want to. Like, there was just a different motivation on de Kock's part. So I just think it's important to, I don't know.
And I guess too, in my mind, he was and had been treated with mercy and with respect, because number one, he was put in a prison. He was given 3 hots and a cot. He was not beaten. He was not tortured.
And let's talk about when he was put in that prison. White South Africa was still in power, right? And I think de Klerk was still, there's de Klerk, the last apartheid president, and he says that his hands are clean of any of that kind of stuff. So I mean, you've got somebody at the top levels saying that, and then they use de Kock as, it's all just dirty.
I just want to say something real quick. In all fairness to Madiba, he was in prison, as we all know, for 3 decades, and then he becomes president. So that doesn't happen without some concessions being made. I mean, what would you do? You're sitting there, because for real, South Africa was a nuclear power.
Yeah.
All right. They didn't have no nuclear weapons when they gave over the power to Madiba. Just for example. So I'm sure that there was a number of things he had to agree to in order to be released and for this to happen. So I had to acknowledge what was being said. I don't think he sold out, because I have to be honest. Like, you can come out of prison and do something good, you know, or do you stay there, you and your principles, you know? I just want to say that in all fairness. I do understand the criticism. I think it's valid. I just wanted to say that to make sure that everyone was aware, and I just want to say that you know, your point that, you know, he was better, he wasn't tortured. I mean, like, yeah, because, like, you know, there were, I don't know the number, but there was countless of apartheid activists, Stephen Biko is the name that comes to mind, who were ruled suicides, and it was like thousands of suicides in police custody, you know. And so anytime, so again, the point is that he wasn't exposed to that type of treatment, but we were, and I don't think that has been acknowledged fully.
Listen, it's almost the fourth quarter. The Wizards are up. We can talk much more about this. You're invited to stick around. You're more invited to come see the play again. We have Pay What You Can performances next week at 12 o'clock on Wednesday and Thursday. We have some regular performances over the weekend. Tell your friends. We have discussions after most of the shows, so we can continue this. It's extraordinary that you guys came out here on a Wednesday night. We really want to thank you.
And I just want to say, for the record, this is the type of productions that Mosaic Theater Company is known for, and I think that the city is better off having a theater company that attacks these issues and not just here to sell tickets, but actually here to make a difference and move the conversation on manage forward. So I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you for
Thanks.
being part of it.